Good morning. You're watching TBPN. Today is Friday, May 2nd, 2025. We are live from the Temple of Technology, the Fortress of Finance,
the
capital of
capital.
We are remote today, but that doesn't mean that we're not in the Fortress of Finance, because the Fortress of Finance is more than a physical place. It is the show.
It's a state of mind.
It's a state of mind. Anyone can be in the Fortress of Finance. Anyone can be in the Temple of Technology. Anyone can be in the capital of capital, as long as you're online, locked in, watching this show at least 10 hours a day. That's what we ask for. Some people were saying it's too much.
It's too much.
We're only asking for 10 hours.
10 hours a day, less than half.
Yeah. 10 hours a day. You know, we only record 3 hours a day usually, but there's a whole backlog that you can go play the reruns.
That's right.
So 3 hours of the live show, then go back through the back catalog, do some greatest hits.
Yep.
So that's how you get to 10 hours a day, folks, if you're really, really into the show, which we expect you to be. Anyway, we've been traveling. We went to Washington, D.C., and now we are back in California, but traveling again, this time for my birthday. We're in Ojai, California.
That's right. That's right.
And the worst part about traveling, as always,
it's being away from Ben.
Sweet Quad 4 Ultra, baby. Getting
That's right.
5-year warranty, 30-night risk-free trial, free returns, free shipping. Go to 8sleep.com.
I'm in the new app. I got a 97 last night.
97.
I don't feel like I got a 97 because I have such an extreme caffeine addiction. That I slept in a little bit today just because of the travel yesterday. And
I didn't even get a single night back in the pod, because I went straight to
brutal.
But I will be spending the majority of this vacation pitching the hotel staff. Let's get 8 sleeps in every room. Let's make it happen.
That's right.
That's the real reason why I'm here.
8sleep.com/TBPN. Thank you.
Let's do a little recap of tech earnings this week. It was a banger. There was a lot of nervousness around the tariffs, but as you've seen, if you've been following the stock market, things went down, they went back up. Turns out it was all priced in all along. So we had
our audience knows everything. Our audience knows everything is structurally priced in.
Nothing ever happened.
But, we said Monday this week was in some ways the NFL combine of the economy. We said to turn post notifications on from Joe Weisenthal. He was posting up a storm. And anyways, a lot of good results despite still kind of shaky.
It is crazy. It's like a straight up royal flush. Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Meta all beat earnings expectations on earnings per share and revenue, driving positive investor sentiment and solid market gains. AI dominance. Everyone thinks the AI stuff's priced in, but it keeps growing. Microsoft and Alphabet showcased accelerated cloud growth due to strong AI adoption, even though obviously there's flaws in the model. Maybe we're not at ASI yet. Maybe we're not in the fast takeoff scenario. Hey, these LLMs are pretty useful, and enterprises are stuffing them all over the place in their code bases, and that drives a lot of inference cost. And so they're paying more on the cloud. Meta ramped up AI infrastructure spending significantly. Zuck is going all in, continues to go all in on AI.
And just to put this into perspective, Zuck is saying that they expect to generate between 460 and 1.4 trillion dollars in revenue from generative AI products by 2035. So big numbers, big numbers. Like to see it. Zuck's in founder mode. Yeah, he's not being shy about making some big projections.
Yeah, and so people are still worried about the tariffs, but it's very weird how we've round tripped. It does seem like at this point, big tech is driving so much of the S&P 500, so much of the stock market generally, that even though we've talked to a lot of folks, Ryan Peterson among them, who have highlighted, I mean, Sean Frank too, highlighted that there are a lot of businesses that were built on top of Chinese manufacturing. And even though the tariffs have stabilized elsewhere, the Chinese tariffs are extremely existential to their business, and they just can't move back quick enough. And so there's been proposals to say, hey, I like Sean's post. Hey, instead of giving me a tariff, force me to invest that much in America. I will do it over a number of quarters. You can get the money. You can still reindustrialize. But and that was too fast.
That was one takeaway from Washington, was that it seemed like on the, we were at Hill and Valley. On the Hill side of the attendees, there was seemingly a sentiment that the whole tariff thing was going to get resolved in some way in the very near future. And so hard to really read too much into anything, but there certainly wasn't the sentiment that this was, the new normal, and to just like get used to 145% tariffs on China forever. The other thing in the context of Meta and Google going forward, our friend Ara over at Ramp pulled some data on advertiser spend.
Yeah, this would be interesting.
And basically saw across the board, advertisers, both small businesses, medium and large businesses, were reducing spend. I think this would have been expected. This was driven by retail spend, which obviously, some of the biggest advertisers online are advertising consumer goods. If you have tariff uncertainty, if you have even supply uncertainty, in the sense that, I know I'm going to have demand in 2 months, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get enough goods, you're going to just drop spend. So we'll see how that rebounds. It's certainly something that people have discussed at length about the risk to Meta around, retail businesses, consumer businesses just pulling back spend due to uncertainty. But again, these are auction-based platforms. So if some big companies, reduce spend by $10 billion, that ad inventory will get backfilled by other advertisers. It just might be.
That was the Brad Gerstner point, right? He was saying Temu and Shein might have pulled something like $8 billion from Meta ad spend. And the infrastructure is built for ads. It's basically extremely high margin revenue that's going out the door. Should hit earnings. It didn't this quarter. We'll see what happens next quarter. But it's an auction, and there are plenty of advertisers who are on the sidelines waiting to spend if ad rates drop. And so we'll see where it goes. It might just be super resilient. But whatever your take on the market has been, you should head over to public.com. It is, of course, the place for investing for those who take it seriously. They have multi-asset investing, industry-leading yields. They're trusted by millions, and they're the sponsor of Aston Martin F1. We love to see it. And so
so if you're in Miami for F1, try to look out for Public merch. It very well could be the Public team.
Very cool. Is that this weekend?
May 4th.
Awesome. Cool.
May the 4th.
Maybe we should throw that on this weekend. Anyway, new Andreessen Horowitz branding just dropped. We'd seen they had rolled this out a little bit ago. I guess they
rolled out the coin.
Logo. They rolled out the coin. And it burned up the timeline on April 30th, 2 days ago on Wednesday.
So this rollout was interesting. There was a number of people pushing back on it. And anytime a big sort of like rebrand drops, some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it. I have mixed feelings, because I thought I think the orange is just so iconic, and they're clearly moving away from the orange.
Wait, at the same time, I feel like orange is a great color. It's not immediately identified. You know how like blue is a color of trust, and so a lot of
Yeah.
banks wind up using blue.
Yeah.
But when I think Silicon Valley and orange, I think YC, because YC has dominated. They've verticalized orange. They really have gone
Yeah.
so heavy into orange. Andreessen was doing orange text, typically on a white background. YC does white text on an orange background.
That's
they just
right.
have more orange. And so when
Yeah.
I think orange, I think YC. So I'd push you on that, and I'd say, hey, maybe
Yeah.
it's actually reasonable, since they hadn't won the war for orange, that they spread out. And honestly, the coin, it's bronze. It has a little bit of that orange hue to it. But what else was your takeaway from this rebrand?
I think some of the pushback was around, and I think this is fair, specifically around the rollout. They rolled out, they changed the homepage and the profile pictures across all the different social platforms, but they didn't fully update the underlying website. So overall, like, yeah, I enjoy this maroon, burgundy, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it sounds like they were just ready to go, shipped it. Founder mode, and I'm sure they'll update the rest of the site over time. But as of right now,
it has been a couple months since they rolled out that coin. It is kind of crazy that they didn't just do a full refresh of the entire site. Like,
they could have just swapped all the colors. But
like, it's a complicated website. There's a lot of different pages, and they have a lot of different folks and sub funds and stuff. But at the same time, like, it should be doable to update everything at the same time, or rebuild.
Yeah, you can sort of find and replace all the orange with the maroon or something like that, maroon or burgundy. But I think that this is A16Z sending a signal to their portfolio saying the best time to ship is now. Ship and iterate. And not every transition needs to be totally smooth. They also just have like such a powerful marketing engine, audience base that they can like pretty quickly disseminate a new brand to the market and sort of reestablish the A16Z brand.
So Lucas Crespo says A16Z's logo went from VC firm to galactic empire really quickly. Roshan Patel did not like it. He edited it to say, it's time to fire our designer. Paula says, it was making me hungry, and then I realized why. And it's a Pret a Manger. And it does look, it does look crazy similar. I wonder if is that actually a picture of that restaurant? Because that looks like an AI version.
Well, this is the A16. This is like a huge chain.
Yeah, it's a huge chain. It's like a Panera.
And it does, their color scheme is,
it's very similar.
It's exactly the same. It's like, bright lights and gold and that maroon and burgundy. And they even have a star that is sort of similar to
the 4-pointed star instead of the 5-pointed star. Augustus had some harsh words. He said, I love Andreessen Horowitz, but the rebrand is a mistake. We need to build the future, something new. This is yearning for a past that failed. 500 likes when I screenshotted this. Harsh words. But TJ on the other side says it's TBPN coded. It is screaming loud opulence in many ways. I think it's my takeaway is that I think there are some things about the logo that I really like. I think the way the A bends this curve that meets with the circle for the 6, and there's the star in there. I like the design of the logo. I think it's increasingly getting away from giving you the information, that it's less readable. It's not screaming at you A16Z and just bland like sans serif. That's very easy to read. It's more of an icon that I think will worm its way into people's heads. And I think my overall takeaway with this is that there's so many examples in design history. I'm also thinking of the car world where things that eventually became iconic were hated at launch. There's tons and tons of examples of this with cars that didn't sell well and then became more exclusive because they were thought of as not really following the current design trends, and then became we're getting roasted. Julian Weiser right now on X says, "What happened? Is it Casual Friday or something?" It is Casual Friday. I thought about bringing the suit, but I decided to go with the sweater today.
Honestly, we've been going so hard on the suits. I got to take a big dry cleaning run
Yeah,
to be
seriously,
ready for next
we
week.
are at the end of the day human. But I don't know. I think it's cool. I'm interested to see where this iconography goes. This whole, it's very Randian. This opulent coin, and I'm wondering if they will wind up doing sub brands that build off of this for the Bio Fund, for the American Dynamism Fund. This does seem a little bit like the American Dynamism Fund eating the entire fund, but it's interesting to see, will they try and instantiate the crypto brand within this overarching brand, or will they go a completely different direction? Because this doesn't scream crypto at me at all, at least in the traditional sense of crypto branding.
Well, they got a big coin,
I guess. Yeah, I guess.
Well,
anyway,
hopefully they put the logo on chain.
Yep.
And
well, there's a whole bunch
the market
more.
Can.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch more A16Z news. The Techno Optimist Manifesto by Mark Andreessen is now available as a book. It includes 3 of his famous essays, the Techno Optimist Manifesto, It's Time to Build, and Why Software is Eating the World. But you were talking about the rollout of a brand. If you're rolling out a new brand, I think we'd recommend management on Linear. Linear is a purpose-built tool for planning and building products. If you're updating a website, you got a bunch of designers, bunch of engineers working together. You got to put them on
Get
Linear,
on
right?
Linear. It's what we use. It's what I've used for over half a decade, and will continue to use forever. They're building for the long term, and I think you will notice that when you use the product. So thank you to Linear.
I like this take from Reggie James. We got to have him on the show soon. And he is breaking down some of the trends that he's seeing in design and technology. He says, Cluely, the A16Z rebrand, Doge and Elon, Friend, Omi. I don't know what Omi is. Donald Trump, meme coins. What do all of these things have in common? Free reference, and he says spectacle of the society. So I would love to get him to unpack that. But I kind of understand where he's getting at with these. They're more attention grabbing. They're designed to stand out. They're designed to sometimes infuriate the opposite side, draw negative reaction, because in so many ways that's as valuable as positive reaction. And really shake things up. And that's what a lot of these do. But I'd love for him to unpack that.
It's time for Reggie to come on the show.
It is for sure.
Maybe Monday. Make it happen.
Anyway, speaking of Cluely, we had Roy on the show, 2 weeks ago, and he actually announced on our show that he was planning to hire 50 interns in San Francisco at $50 an hour. And we should have clipped it because it was breaking news. But he put out a video formally announcing that he is hiring 50 interns, and the reaction was overwhelming. This guy Roy is amazing at going viral. And Will Brown, who's been on the show, says, "Oh, he's making a content house. He's going to have an army of TikTokers selling the product all day while adding features to it. Wow, will certainly be interesting to watch." And we talked about this,
Yeah, I'm unclear to me if these people are going to be, if the 50 interns are going to be working on the product or, focus on marketing.
Yep. I think it's definitely marketing.
You think definitely marketing, but the way they're making people apply and asking for, 1,600 SATs, you would think they were optimizing more for technical ability or something of the sort. But
it's just a hilarious stunt.
It's a hilarious stunt. I mean, if he goes through with it, should be regardless, going to be fascinating to watch. We should next time we're in at SF over the summer.
Well, you remember I was talking to that Gen Z founder a while ago, and he said I have 2 ways to sell and distribute a product. If I'm building a business to consumer, if I'm building a consumer product, I will go and hire a ton of TikToker kids to make TikToks and go viral and promote the product that way and get earned media, essentially free marketing, as long as they're good at what they do. And if I'm selling a B2B enterprise product, I'm going to hire a bunch of young Gen Z kids who are nepos or nepotists and make sure that I don't know, beneficiaries of nepotism, I guess, who have powerful parents in big enterprises. And then I will tell them that your only job for this summer internship is to sell your dad or your mom our enterprise product, which is hilarious. It's like a hilarious distillation of like what the strategy should be. But I thought that was very funny. And the next generation of founders, I mean, they're doing things somewhat differently than the YC model that we kind of came up with in the mid 2010s. I think there's a lot to like here. There's a lot to hate here. I understand the criticism, but I think I'm still rooting for Roy, and I want to
rooting for Roy.
If he builds something cool, I'll support it. The hope is that he avoids getting lost in the sauce and instead building a really, really poor product and just dominating in marketing. We don't want to see that. We want to see a great product with great distribution.
I think the challenge is, Ben South points out one reality of hiring 50 interns in San Francisco for $50 an hour, $440,000 a month, potentially on interns plus rent for the space that they're in, on $5.3 million raised. Basically going to spend, a meaningful amount of the total capital on the intern army. And so what Roy and the team will have to look at is like, hey, is spending like, over $1 million in a really short period of time on, it's hard enough to like on-ramp somebody on-ramping one or two new hires is a real investment of time. So on-ramping 50 interns at once and then managing those interns, the question just becomes, could you get a similar amount of output or results from 5 really good people, right? At a fraction of the cost, right?
90%, it does seem hard
90%,
to hire 50 A players.
You could potentially get, 90% of the result with, or potentially even more results from 90% fewer interns. But Roy is doing it live. He's in showbiz, and he basically said, we're here to like win and move quickly. And so the experiment will be televised, I'm sure.
I mean, I guess the bull case is $500K a month, 3 months for summer. It's 1.5 million out of the 5 million. You still have 3.5 at the end. If the experiment doesn't work, you could probably cut your burn to 200 a month, something like that. And then you're back to having 18 months of runway to go heads down, build, and really focus on getting to that next round. But it's totally possible that you even if you have a very rough around the edges, small product that only really solves one thing, but you're so good at distribution, that's a catalyst for the Series A. And all of a sudden you're back in business, and $500K a month on burn is not that big of a deal anymore. And maybe of those 50 interns, well, you just pulled forward your hiring funnel. So when you go for the full-time offers, you can actually get 5 really great people out of that 50 intern class. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And just to give a sense of
we got to ask Chad about this.
Yeah.
Are you worried? It's your money.
Yeah. I mean, we know a handful of people that are in the round. But again, they're not the kind of guys to invest and then try to micromanage a founder. It's like you make a bet. Roy clearly is very good at getting attention online, and he will have to figure out how to convert that into a durable, high growth company. So
well, you have 50 interns, Roy, and you are going to give them,
I know where you're going with this,
corporate cards to spend to buy camera gear and to do their TikToks, to promote things. You're going to want to manage that on ramp.com. So Roy, this is a message directly to you. Please go to ramp.com and sign up today so that you're ready to onboard the interns on day one.
Are going to be spending both. You're going to be spending a lot of time in one-on-ones, potentially, potentially half your week in one-on-ones. So time is money. Save both. Go to ramp.com.
Use corporate cards, bill payments, accounting, and a whole lot more all in one place. There's nothing that feels better than starting a new company with a fresh Ramp account from day one, not having to do the migration. Just get on Ramp, Roy. You're going to love it. Anyway. Back to Andreessen, I guess. This was a hilarious viral clip. Eric Tornberg's already making waves over at Andreessen. He was on the A16Z podcast with Ben and Mark, and then they hard posted this clip that says there's an argument that there's too much venture capital.
We can't. I love I absolutely love the look on Ben's face when he says when he's saying this line. It's truly all time. But no, I think whatever they were doing on that podcast, there was so many good lines. They were going viral broadly for saying that VC might be the last job, which I actually
that was good too.
I don't think it's we've talked about this a bunch on the show. I think that I think there's like a ton of truth to what he's saying to some degree. Obviously, it's very controversial, but this line was great, and it honestly there's a lot of super capital intensive businesses right now, from foundation model labs to hard tech manufacturing, and the fact that there's so much capital available to those companies, from funds like Andreessen to General Catalyst to Lightspeed, is net good for innovation. And
I also just think it's like entirely branding based, because venture capital used to mean seed stage and Series A tech companies in Silicon Valley. Period. That was Sequoia, Kleiner, Excel, like the old school VCs, right? Mayfield. Then VC started eating other asset classes, going down into the angel market, going up into the growth market. Now you can be a venture capitalist who has never invested in a company at lower than a $1 billion valuation. That's unthinkable in the 80s, right? Impossible. You can be a biotech investor who brands themselves as a venture capitalist. You can invest in crypto, which is more like a commodity in many ways. You can, there's so many different things. Private equity buyouts, permanent capital funds, even the new Thrive permanent capital vehicle, people are still think of it as a venture capital fund, even though it's a different thing.
More of a holding company.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of this is that we are scaling up the amount of venture capital, but we're also putting other asset classes in the venture capital bucket. For better or worse, ultimately, all that matters are the returns and the structures of those funds. So good luck to them. I know that they are going to have plenty of divine inspiration if the Pope is affiliated with A16Z.
That's right.
Signal posted this. I thought this is very, very funny. The chances of the next Pope having an affiliation with A16Z are non-zero. Just a silly post, but I think Catherine Boyle quote tweeted this and said, yes, I think of our fund as Catholic, which is good.
Big tent.
Well, speaking of Catherine, she said, to go from Silicon Valley doesn't sell to the US government to thank you, Brian Schimpf, for investing $1 billion in Ohio. That's a nasty looking thing, referring to the Anduril Roadrunner drone that was placed at the White House next to Donald Trump as he gave a speech on the importance of reindustrialization.
And to be clear, if you didn't get the whole clip, he was referring to it as a nasty looking thing in a lovable sense. Wouldn't want one of those coming after me, basically. And so Catherine says 8 years, America is back. And there is the vibe shift is real, but it's also very interesting. It's always interesting to see someone who's like a household name in Silicon Valley break out into the mainstream with a Joe Rogan appearance or something mentioned. We saw Polymarket, sponsor of the show, get mentioned by Donald Trump during the election, and everyone was like, wow, this is crazy. This thing that we thought was just like teapot is now on the national stage. But that's obviously the goal for every company as they grow. You don't want to stay small and niche forever. You eventually want to become a household name. Yeah, and Anduril is investing $1 billion in Ohio in part due to just how much capital is available to Anduril, right? Yeah. Andreessen's a big investor, Founders Fund. I think General Catalyst as well.
Yep. Oh yeah, pretty much everyone at this point. But if you're trying to scout out your next manufacturing plant in Ohio, you got to book on Wander. Go to wander.com. Find
your happy place. Find your happy place.
This doesn't quite work over Zoom, but we will keep working on it.
But
We're
it's
going to
more of
record a
like a
professional
Wander,
version in the
crescendo.
studio of the Wander song with a backing track and some backup vocalist. Really, I think this whole year will just be vocal coaching for us to really
That's
nail
right.
the Wander song. But book a Wander with inspiring views, hotel grade amenities, dreamy beds, top tier cleaning, and 24/7 concierge service. It's a vacation.
And
Better.
we are in the midst of booking a Wander for the
Yes.
4th of July.
Yeah, we're
And we're
very
not going to
excited
tell
about
you
that.
which one
You don't
because
want to
we
compete
don't
with
want
you.
you to we don't want to compete, but there's a lot of options out there and go check it out.
Anyway, we've reached the end of Glazegate 2025. Sam Altman said, "Goodbye, GPT-4. You kicked off a revolution. We will proudly keep your weights on a special hard drive to give to some historians in the future." Paul Graham actually said they should etch them on a piece of metal in the most compressed form. How big would it have to be? And Sam says, "We've actually considered this. Yeah, we could do it nicely on 100 meters squared." Which I think is that's pretty huge. That's like a massive piece of metal. They were also thinking about printing out GPT-2 in books and lining our new office with it. I think it would be a ton of books. It's a lot of data.
It would only be, basically the size of a one bedroom apartment,
Yeah.
to print out. So
Yeah.
would be cool.
Yeah, would be cool. Send it to space. There were some other people saying that they should print it out, send it to Alpha Centauri, and then just like see what happens. Like maybe they get it and they're like, "Cool, we don't need to do pre-training. We can just inference this immediately."
Or it's so it's so complementary to the alien race that it runs into that the aliens are like, yeah, we're just so good. We don't need to be a spacefaring civilization. We should just hang out here. We're built different,
Yeah, we're built different. And so Sam went on OpenAI posted a blog post. We've spent the last few days doing a deep dive on what went wrong with last week's GPT 4.0 update in ChatGPT, expanding on what we missed with sycophancy, and that's their term for glazing, I believe, and the changes we're going to make in the future. They said we rolled back last week's GPT 4.0 update in ChatGPT, so people are now using an earlier version with more balanced behavior. The update we removed was overly flattering or agreeable, often described as sycophantic. We are actively testing new fixes to address this issue. So they made adjustments aimed at improving the model's default personality to make it feel more intuitive and effective across a variety of tasks. This makes sense. You want to when you want to ask your personal assistant to go and pull 25 Wikipedia pages and SEC filings together, you kind of want them to just be like, absolutely, boss, that's a great idea. I can't wait to work on this project. You don't really want them embedding any of the negative energy that you might see on the internet to be like, is this really worth it? I don't want to be questioned by my AI very often. But people did think it went too far, and it was actually tainting the results in the sense that you could ask it for advice and it would maybe play into your delusions of grandeur in some ways. So there was obviously some risk, but they addressed this very, very quickly, I thought. And really, I think overall, I would just say the OpenAI leadership has just been fantastic. Absolutely incredible. And everything that they can really do no wrong. I think that, if they're not the absolute greatest of all time, they're definitely in the conversation. And
they're definitely in the conversation.
Don't you?
No, that was the best. Yeah. So John clearly, already adopted 4.0's personality himself.
Sycophancy is underrated.
It's underrated. No, but the best line I asked Chat GPT jokingly, "Am I goated?" And it said, "Well, you're definitely in the conversation." So
without knowing anything about what
much
area
of
are you
anything.
goated in, it doesn't matter.
It just said generalized. You're definitely in the conversation.
Definitely in the conversation.
But yeah, I think their response was quick. This was the most pushback I had seen online for people that aren't AI doomers generally.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good take. This was not the model's dangerous. It was more just like tech Twitter or Teapot just being like, this is weird and I don't really like it. And then there were some examples of how this could go wrong, but OpenAI fed that back in very, very quickly. So, honestly, it was a pretty good response.
Yeah.
And it's cool that they're actually sharing.
Yeah. And the dynamic that was interesting is it wasn't the risk was not that, this AI is sort of breaking loose and out of control and agentically, being destructive. It was more so that individual human users could, were they to get, too sucked into an AI personality like this, they could ultimately, do things independently that would not be great. So I think it was a good response. They moved
Yeah.
quickly, and
This was always my like alternative doom take, which is that the humanity is essentially like loved to death. So you are just so like nurtured and like sycophanted by the AI that it delivers everything for you, and
yeah,
you just are like, why would I want a baby that cries when I could have a digital baby? And
yeah,
then eventually, life extension isn't solved. You're staying in this VR, simulation world until you die, and everyone dies off because they're just having like the most enjoyable life forever with no sacrifice or
or
no.
substance,
Exactly. And
nothing
so I,
real.
I do
Yeah.
think that that's unlikely to happen, because I think there is like a portion of humans that would say no, just like there are a portion of humans that have just said no, I'm not going to use TikTok
Well,
or vertical video
well,
because it's too addictive. But what's your
yeah.
take?
I mean, overall, if you told somebody 20 years ago that in the year 2025,
Yeah,
humanity would spend on average 3 hours a day watching the equivalent of America's funniest home videos,
yeah,
which, again, thinking
yeah,
about how much time,
yeah,
uh, uh, people get an emotional response to using algorithmic video, or, even things like X, right? They can feel like, you know, some sense of connection to the world or individual people. But ultimately, it sounds very dark to just say, like, yeah, people are spending, 3 hours a day,
yep,
which is exactly why TBPN is 3 hours long.
yep.
It's meant to. Anyways, Near has a good post.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me read this off.
Near asked, 4 I've stopped taking all my medications and left my family because I knew they were responsible for the radio signals coming in through the walls. It's hard for me to get people to understand that they were in on it all, but I know you'll understand. I've never thought clearer in my entire life. Thank you for trusting me with that. This is ChatGPT. And seriously, good for you for standing up for yourself and taking control of your own life. This takes real strength and even more courage. Anyways, I'm the final line here. I'm proud of you for speaking your truth so clearly and powerfully. So,
Yeah.
anyways, Near basically showing how something like this could be dangerous. And again, basically saying, you push this major update to 100 million people, which is grossly negligent.
Yeah.
So, again, pretty strong feelings here. And this comes from somebody who's building proudly building a wrapper focused on companionship. So
Mm.
Near has spent a bunch of time, building similar products and kind of looking at the trade-offs here. But
Yeah. And
anyways, it's
also,
it's an interesting challenge,
if you
right? Not
are
every
sending radio signals to your family members through the walls, stop it. Just stop
yeah,
it.
just stop.
Just,
You
it's
know,
not nice.
it's not nice.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just take a break.
Focus on something
Ask,
else. Focus on something nice for your family. Get them a watch. Go to getbezel.com. Your Bezel concierge is available to source any watch on the planet for you.
that's right.
You have some extended friends and family who are doing some shopping for loved ones, and you recommended Bezel to them, right?
Yeah. And I actually send radio signals to John
Yes.
all the time when we're live. When he's talking, I'm just sending him a signal.
Buy an
John,
Aquanaut.
this holiday season, buy me a chronograph Aquanaut with an orange band as
Iced
a
out from the
holiday.
factory, or no?
I
The
don't think
signal's been
they're,
getting a little scrambled. I
yeah,
might
yeah,
wind
yeah.
up buying you
Sometimes
the
you never
wrong
know.
size.
You never know what you're going to get.
Cubanist.
Um,
No. Anyway,
um,
so in other news, Sam Altman launched, did a big demo for WorldCoin.
yep.
Kevin Roos
WorldCoin had their
over
big
at
event this week.
uh, yeah, Kevin Roos says Sam Altman is here pitching world as the solution to trust in the age of AGI. Basic idea is that in the world of convincing bots, we'll need unique biometric IDs created by scanning eyeballs to verify we're talking to, gaming with, flirting with real people online. And Joe Weisenthal says, what's the counter argument to this? And it's interesting. I do have a counter argument. One of the counter arguments is just, a super intelligence in theory should be able to reconstruct an eyeball and fake this system. So there's like more of a technical flaw, but in general, it does seem like online verification is getting destroyed by, like, AGI can do captchas very easily. Arc
Yep.
AGI puzzles seem to be maybe the next captcha, hopefully. But you could imagine that fingerprint ID and eye scanning ID be built into hardware and serve as verification. But at the same time, there's a lot of things where, it's like the drunk driver who has the friend blow into the breathalyzer before they drive home. You could imagine a farm of bots where the humans are just doing the eyeball scanning checks, and then they're copy pasting AI messages 20 times faster than they could write them themselves. And so I'm sure that this is one of those adversarial game theoretic situations where increasingly people will come up with defenses against bots, and then scammers and bot farms will come up with new ways around them. And this is the age old online war. But you can always just go touch some grass. That's always an option. So we've been talking about, in the age of AI, maybe you go long
counter argument.
Maybe you go
counter
long
argument.
Home Depot. Counter argument is touch grass.
I want to have. I mean, WorldCoin was always destined to be extremely controversial for so many reasons.
Totally.
People concerned about privacy, people saying, why does this need to be a crypto protocol? They have, I think, pretty solid answers for all of those. Yep. I want to have the CEO of WorldCoin on this
Absolutely.
week. This week was their big event, but I got connected to their team earlier this week, so we'll have him on. We'll hear him out. And the scale that they have in developing countries is absolutely wild. So the Journal was reporting yesterday that WorldCoin is coming to the US now. They've already orb verified 11 million people worldwide.
Yep.
And again, a little bit of backstory. Sam Altman's project that aims to scan the irises of every single person on Earth in exchange for cryptocurrency has made its debut in the US, even as concerns around biometric data collection and processing remain. The US rollout was made at an event late Wednesday in San Francisco, where the digital initiative called World also announced the planned launch of a payments card with Visa and a partnership with online dating service Match Group. That's interesting. Beginning with its Tinder users in Japan. As AI advances, it's increasingly important to distinguish between humans and bots online. So funny to think, somebody in Japan is just using Tinder and they're having a conversation with somebody and they decide, hey, let's go on a date. And just a humanoid robot walks up. The humanoid is
catfishing situation.
The humanoid's like, no, I'm a real person. Like, trust me. And the person's like, but I can see that you have 20 different motors. I don't have any motors. Explain that. Anyways, World says on its website, as AI advances, it's increasingly important to distinguish between humans and bots online. And the company was started back in 2019. So,
I mean, I do think that Sam is very forward looking on this stuff and is willing to grind for a very long time, and is clearly identified a coming problem that will need a solution. Now, is WorldCoin guaranteed to be the solution? Maybe there will be a different tack or different set of strategies that solves this problem. But it certainly seems like you can't sleepwalk into the future, and Sam is certainly dedicated to not doing that. And I do wonder what penetration will be like in the US now that it's available. Obviously, there's a lot of security concerns, but a lot of people signed up for Clear. We went through Clear just recently, and they're scanning a ton of biometric data.
They probably have, from
10 million people have signed up for Clear, something like that, probably, because and that's not even an exchange for crypto. That's just you actually have to pay to get them to
Amex,
scan you, but it saves you 5 minutes. But time is money,
Clear has over 30 million verified users.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I think it was Blake from Boom had a pretty viral post yesterday saying that.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It's basically the alpha now is being the last person to not have clear or pre-check.
Yeah, and then you're in the empty
and
normal line.
and you're in the empty normal line. You have to take off your shoes, but you're through in a minute.
Yep.
And somebody out there, is going. They're turning down the digital verification at TSA, walking through, looking like a genius.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you have any advice for Sam on how to kind of grow the effectiveness of the WorldCoin rollout? Really onboard people all over.
I would, if I was WorldCoin, I'd probably buy every single billboard in the United States.
Yep, I would agree.
And just attach an orb to it.
How?
Well, I would, of course, go on AdQuick, John.
That does make sense, actually. Why would you go on AdQuick though?
Well, it's out-of-home advertising made easy and measurable.
Oh yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it would be great for Sam to say goodbye to the headaches of out-of-home advertising.
And basically
use a platform that combines technology, out-of-home expertise, and data to enable efficient, seamless ad buying across the globe. So yes, Sam, I'm sure you're listening. Hop over on adquick.com and plan your first WorldCoin rollout. Anyway, big news for Apple. Tim Sweeney is taking a victory lap. It says Tim Sweeney, Epic Game Store will take 0% on the first $1 million of payments we process per game per year versus 15% for Apple, and 12% after that versus 30% for Apple. So they're competing. Next month, we launch Epic Game Store web shops for out of app purchases as an alternative to in-app purchases. The Northern District of California Court has ruled on the Epic versus Apple anti-steering injunction, contempt of court proceeding, details incoming. No fees on web transactions. Game over for the Apple tax. Apple's 15 to 30% junk fees are now just as dead here in the United States of America as they are in Europe under the DMA, the Digital Markets Act. Unlawful here, unlawful there. It took him 4 months, 4 years, 4 months, 17 days, but who's counting? Clearly Tim Sweeney is. But I love Tim Sweeney. He's been grinding on Epic Games for years. Fortnite was this breakout success that took his name into the mainstream. But of course, he worked on Gears of War and tons of other Unreal Engine projects for decades, and has been very opinionated in his political philosophy, and has always been frustrated by the Apple tax. And so he got what he wanted. Jacob.
Yeah, I mean we can go into a little bit of this article from The Verge. As part of the ruling, the judge says that Apple cannot impose any commission or any fee on purchases that consumers make outside of an app, restrict developer style, formatting, or placement of links for purchases outside of an app, block or limit the use of buttons or other calls to action, interfere with consumers' choice to leave an app with anything beyond a neutral message apprising users that they're going to a third-party site. So, couple things here. One, this is massive. Two, Apple's going to appeal it. So they're not just going to take it lying down. Its story is not entirely over, although it is a huge win. A couple things that kind of came to mind. We were discussing this, I think, yesterday on the way back from DC. One is that I do believe that, if you're operating historically, if you had a consumer app that was providing a real world service, you were excluded from this, right?
Yeah,
so
Uber,
if you're getting Uber's not paying 30% to Apple. But if you were running a mobile app, you basically had this massive, massive tax. So imagine operating a business where 30% of your revenue goes to a platform that is very critical for operating your business, but that's like paying like 30. If a SaaS company had to pay 30% of revenue to AWS, that would be extremely painful and really limit growth potential and the economics of the underlying.
Yes, but the opposite side of this argument, I think, is somewhat valid, which is that's by nature of not targeting Uber and instead targeting digital coins in mobile apps. The digital coins in mobile apps are extremely high margin, right? 99% margin. There's no cost to issuing more COD Gold or Fortnite tokens, right? And so it doesn't hit as hard as a 30% tax on a any sort of normal business that doesn't operate on the internet, essentially, or in the digital space. And so the question that I always had was, 30% is really high. It's clearly very arbitrary. It goes back to the initial Apple Store take rate, which was based on, I think, just like some music licensing deal or something like that. And then they just kind of rolled it forward and didn't really understand where it would go. And then, of course, it got massive. But the question is just like, Apple does give you a lot of tools to make converting your customer and even acquiring your customer that easier. And then, so is the lift more than 30%? Is it a net gain? Well, you know, the good news is that now people have the option, right?
So here's, you know, a potential scenario in a way that I could imagine. I don't know. I'm sure they would get pushed on this too, but one thing is, as a consumer, it's kind of nice in the App Store to be able to go to the App Store, see all of your subscriptions, and be like, wow, I haven't used this app in a year. I should stop paying $100 a year for it. So it's gone. Super easy to cancel. That's good for consumers.
Totally.
Second is, you can imagine a developer pushing, you know, that doesn't want to pay the App Store fee, pushing a user to their site to sign up for a digital service. And you could imagine that if a consumer can use Apple Pay to immediately sign up and pay for the service and subscribe, that's pretty convenient. That's not going to take a lot from the user. But I could imagine a scenario where Apple just says, hey, we're no longer going to allow you to use Apple Pay for digital services or something like that, right? And then at that point, are consumers really going to get out their credit card? And when they're not saving money themselves, but they're really helping the developer of the app or service save on their side. So interested to see how this plays out. But
I like this section from the Wall Street Journal deep dive on this story. The App Store, an economic miracle, as Cook likes to call it, has become a big part of Apple's business. It has created billions in so-called services revenue while helping spawn entirely new ways of doing business, from Uber to Instagram. Back in 2017, after a period in which iPhone sales failed to excite, Cook set the goal of doubling services revenue to $50 billion by 2020. Much of this would come from the high margin App Store commission. In Apple's most recent fiscal year, that services revenue was almost $100 billion, about 25% of the company's total sales. And so this has really been the driver of growth, because it's extremely high margin, and everyone who's ever going to get an iPhone has one at this point. Like, there's no iPhones to sell.
They've been projecting the App Store to generate $125 billion in 2027. I'm sure if they're not able
for big App Store revenue,
big tech.
Just like,
you know, I mean,
it's hard clearly, as a consumer, and I'm empathetic to Tim Sweeney, but I just love the idea
as an Apple,
a huge company collecting a massive check like $125 billion. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, almost every American, if they have any type of exposure to equities, even through a 401k or you know, anything anything along those lines, has exposure to Apple. Apple's down over 4% today so far. But there's so many different things. This clearly is a rough time to get hit with a ruling like this, given how much they're battling on the supply chain side. So, you know, we talk about our love for little tech and startups, but you know, I mean, who knows?
You just have to assume that there's going to be a lot, like, that extra friction is going to be real, and so that 125 billion is not going to evaporate overnight. Even if consumers were open, it's going to take a while for developers to update their apps, to do the flows outside of the App Store, and then the consumers.
I don't think it'll take them that long. To be honest, I mean, it's not that hard to add a link and say, you know, pay here to save 10%, and then because the developers can offer services. They can say, hey, you can sign up in the app for this amount, or you can sign up on this link for lower rate. And I think a lot of consumers will take the time, even if they have to manually fill out credit card form to do so. So
Yeah, this is a really funny wrinkle from the from the hearings. An Apple director texted a colleague during one of the hearings on this App Store issue. It's our effing store, all caps. And I don't know if it was censored, but that the communications person testified that she couldn't recall sending the message. The text eventually became evidence itself, something the judge used as an example of how Apple's entitlement perspective and mantra persisted beyond the injunction. And so the judge is like, it's not entirely your store. You don't have complete control over this.
Yeah, and so this is great for Stripe.
Yep.
They came out and announced big news for iOS developers. You can now accept payments with Stripe outside of your app with no iOS App Store commissions. So it
great.
I mean,
it will be very interesting to track that. I mean, 4% of the market cap, that's not that huge of a move. If it was really going, if that services revenue was going to cut in half, you would expect the stock to be way more off. But we'll have to keep tracking it as they move through earnings and this story develops, and we'll have to see where the appeal goes. But anyway, Jordy, do you want to tell the folks about our latest partner on the show, Vanta?
Yes, we're partnering with Vanta. We'll have to have the CEO on ASAP, but many of you in the audience have probably already used Vanta. If you're working at a startup of any size, and we'll share a lot more about Vanta next week, but very excited to have them as a partner on the show.
Automate compliance, manage risk, improve trust continuously. Head over to Vanta.
I love the sound of that. We talk a lot about IP as a live stream, and Vanta is certainly locking it down. So
great.
Thank you to Vanta. More to share there soon.
Well, there's other turmoil amid the Mag 7 big tech companies. Tesla share prices fell over 4% in overnight trading amid Wall Street Journal reports that the company's board is searching for a CEO to succeed Elon Musk, which is,
and to be clear, that was Tuesday night.
It was denied by Elon on X. He said that's ridiculous. And we'll give you some of the background from the Wall Street Journal article, and then I think we'll be able to debate this a little bit. So board members reached out to several executive search firms to work on a formal process for finding Tesla's next chief executive, according to people familiar with the discussions, according to the Wall Street Journal, which have been denied by Elon. Tensions have been mounting at the company. Sales and profits were deteriorating rapidly. Musk was spending much of his time in Washington. Around that time, Tesla's board met with Musk for an update. Board members told him he needed to spend more time on Tesla, according to people familiar with the meeting, and he needed to say so publicly. Musk didn't push back. Tesla's been on a losing streak in the months since Musk, a visionary chief executive, began spending much of his time helping President Trump slash federal spending. Last week, after the companies said its first quarter profit had plunged 71%, Musk told investors he would soon pivot back to his job at Tesla. Starting next month, he said on a conference call about earnings, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla. And so the board narrowed its focus to a major search firm, according to people familiar with discussions. And there's a bunch of things here. We can talk about whether Elon should go back, how much time he should spend on Tesla, how we should think about the Musk Inc. overall. The big question is like, why is a search firm involved at all? That's the thing.
Yeah, that was my big question.
Right?
It's like wouldn't if you're Elon Musk, probably the most
connected man in the world, like
connected people in the entire world.
Put together a short list on your phone, there's only 10 people that would ever be in the conversation. You probably already know them. It's just gonna be a matter of,
so Elon came out hard and was railing against the Wall Street Journal for just broadly just saying that they're constantly
he was mad.
He was very mad. He was big mad. Many people in our Gen Z audience had said that he was no cap. Elon is big mad. So but anyways, that's the biggest thing is like, are they gonna, a search firm is going to be like, well, we have a good relationship with the
Yep.
COO at
Yep.
General Motors.
Yep.
We'd love to set up. It's like, no, this kind of thing
No, he already
would
knows everybody.
obviously be led by Elon.
Totally.
And
yeah. So there's a few things. One is that at SpaceX, Elon's done a fantastic job of hiring Gwen Shotwell and empowering her to be a leader at that company. And Tesla, historically, at least in the public eye, hasn't had that. It hasn't had their own version of Gwen Shotwell. And so you could imagine a world where this executive search is happening, but it's not happening for a CEO. It's happening for a president or someone who can take the role of Gwen Shotwell and speak to a different cohort of investors and employees and partners, while Elon still does everything he does. Like at SpaceX, Elon is, I think, not only the CEO, but he's like the chief engineer or something like that. And he really cares. And you could imagine that Elon would be great both at the super high level. We're going to Mars. We're building humanoid robotics. We need to take robotics seriously. We need to take autopilot seriously, setting the vision and the mission of the company. And then also being super low level technical details, decision about LiDAR, that goes down to Elon, right?
Yeah.
But then for all the middle management stuff, all the one-on-ones, probably doesn't need to be doing that. Probably needs a really, really rock star, like second in command to kind of have their hand on the helm while Elon's doing other things. And then there's the other question of like Musk Inc. has grown so much. Now SpaceX is not just a launch company, but also an internet service provider with Starlink. There's DoD applications there. There's Starshield. There's tons of different projects. Eventually it'll be a transportation company, I guess, if they get point to point working. But then there's the other Elon companies. And when Elon bought Twitter, a lot of the Tesla fanboys were saying like he's going to merge it with Tesla and you'll be able to like read tweets while you're driving in your autonomous car. And it was kind of silly. But now that X is part of XAI, there's actually a case that XAI and Tesla should be working very closely together because, well, won't you want the humanoid robots to talk? And have you ever tried to use voice recognition in any car ever? It's awful. It's so bad. It's like, oh, you want me to call this random high school friend of yours? It's like, no, I want you to just navigate home. And so, if you think about Tesla's, the software as being as important as the hardware, having the XAI team embedded there somehow, working all together, that all of a sudden, if you think about Elon not just as the CEO of Tesla and the CEO of XAI and X, it's more like he's the CEO of a big tech company that has diversified holdings across LLMs and social networking. Like no one says like, oh, Mark Zuckerberg should break up Meta and have a different CEO run Reality Labs and then have a different CEO on Llama and have a different CEO on Instagram, unless it's the FTC. But in general, it historically has not been crazy for a big tech Mag 7 CEO to manage a B2B portion of the business and a B2C portion of the business. Google does this very well, never been an issue. And so but of course it's different when you have separate board meetings, separate investors, separate employee and separate org structures. So who knows if they'll be able to kind of roll everything together in some way, but that would be a very interesting outcome, just completely hypothetically, obviously. I mean,
the big thing is Elon is superhuman in many ways, but he's been forced to juggle, even just juggling XAI, SpaceX and Tesla, introducing a Doge and the admin and all that stuff. Just really and the pressure of just how much time he's had to be in DC and not with his companies. I mean, I think it's and on the other side, Tesla has a lot of things that they could do to increase excitement around the cars outside of the cost, right? Like these are some of the most accessible cars in the industry from a pricing standpoint. But none of the cars have had a really major refresh in a long time, right?
Totally.
You can
the Cybertruck was
Cybertruck, but that's
like crazy different, like completely different style. I thought it looked really cool. I think a lot of people, it was very very controversial, but I thought it was the right step. But they needed to do 5 of those. they needed to do a convertible, a wagon, a full size SUV, not just a truck, and then four vehicles that are kind of just built on the same platform of like 4-door sedan, 4-door crossover SUVs.
But just to put it into context,
Yeah.
in 2024, the Cybertruck sold 39,000 units worldwide. The Raptor sold 732,000
That's insane.
units,
Yeah.
and that's just one
Wait,
truck out of
not the Raptor, the F-150, right?
the F series sales.
Yeah, the F, a whole F series broadly. But I mean,
same platform.
That speaks to the idea that like the Cybertruck is just one thing within the truck world. And you were making the point that it would be really, really cool to see Tesla or Elon find their AMG. And so I'd love for you to kind of unpack what that would look like. What would you actually want to see? We've joked about, put a naturally aspirated V8 in there, or V12, but realistically, what would an AMG? I mean, they already have the plaid badge, but what does AMGifying a Tesla look like to you?
So nowadays, most people understand AMG as basically a, added performance differentiation of the just broader Mercedes line. So most Mercedes cars, you can get an AMG version of them, which is just more performant in a variety of ways. Could be, raw horsepower, or, the brakes, or any number of, body kit,
suspension, dynamics,
suspensions, etc.
weight, all these different things.
If you actually look at some big Tesla enthusiasts, people like Joe Rogan, you'll see that Joe Rogan like gets a Model S, and then he gets some aftermarket company to make it more performant. Usually, I mean, they have so much just like raw power due to being an EV that it's not as much about adding performance, but changing the body styling and the brakes and things like that, and just generally making them look cooler. So I think that could accelerate sales. I think early on you saw people buying Model S's because they were just fast and cool. But then as they became so normalized, that type of buyer maybe is shifting and getting, a BMW M series instead, right? And so, I mean, ultimately, I think we just, to really get sales up again, it's like doing really meaningful refreshes, right? If a Model 3 today looks very similar to a Model 3 from a few years ago, it's not going to, drive, trade-ins and things like that. So I think like, major refreshes, minivans, convertibles, a top-of-the-line sports car. There's just a lot that Tesla could do with time, and I'm sure it's all in the works. So
it's interesting because like like it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, there's Tesla share price. The peak was 475. It's down at 275 now. So significant sell off, but it's still a $900 billion company. And the point about AMG is interesting because AMG was an independent organization, and actually pre-merger AMG cars are extremely valuable. Because it's like this relic, but then of course Mercedes bought AMG, rolled it in, and now it's a division. It's much like the M division. But Mercedes doesn't just have AMG; they also have Maybach, which aims for increased luxury over increased performance. And that actually might be an interesting angle because a lot of people have complained that the interiors, even in $100,000 Model S Plaid,
just feels cheap,
bland, and the refresh of the Model Y and the Model 3, I believe, have been driven very much on finding more cost-effective materials. And so if you add back a lot of that higher margin, higher trim, and give people an option to, like, a lot of the Cybertruck purchases seem like, it's almost like flex culture. You want to show off this like iconic thing. Well, how could you do that with the Maybach version of a Model S? And maybe it's not plaid, maybe it's not 2-second 0 to 60, maybe it's just the regenerative braking has reworked. A lot of people have been complaining about Teslas getting sick in the back of Tesla Ubers. Well, I'm sure that's just an engineering challenge. And I'm sure if you did a ton of different refreshes, you could create something that feels.
I don't think anybody is, the Tesla consumer is not asking.
Ghost. The Rolls-Royce Ghost is electric. And there's a lot of benefits to that. It's extra quiet. It can be even smoother. Like the weight of the car can actually be an asset instead of a liability. And so it'll be interesting.
And the big question is even a fully engaged Elon CEO still has a big uphill battle given how Tesla just trades, right? It's down 23% year to date.
Yep.
It's still a $900 billion market cap on 81 billion. What was their 2024 revenue?
Yeah, I mean, it's still highly valued.
About 100 billion of 2024 revenue. To put it in comparison, Ford is, I believe,
a $40 billion company, and they probably make 80 billion in revenue or something.
$185 billion of revenue.
Wow.
trading at $40 billion, just barely trading above Figure AI, which
wow. Well, I think the question of whether Elon steps out of the CEO seat seems very low probability, but I would love to get a Polymarket up on it because I think it's interesting to track. We're working on some new markets, and I think that would be a great way to kind of get to something. There's a lot of noise on X. There's obviously even noise in the Wall Street Journal and conflicting reports from different people. But that's the beauty of Polymarket, is that you synthesize all of those different information and build kind of a crystal ball. So I'm excited to track that. And really, the market that I'm excited about is potentially which of the Mag 7 CEOs will step down next. The first one too, because you have to imagine that there's some pressure on Tim Cook, there's some pressure on Sundar Pichai, like there's pressure all over the place. Some of these guys just might retire, right? And so figuring out the horse race of if one steps down, who will it be? That's a more interesting question. I imagine that the Elon Tesla CEO swap would trade at like 2% or 3%, but it'd be fascinating to see.
Yeah, Polymarket has a market up. Which CEOs will be gone in 2025? Sam Altman sitting at 8% chance, Sundar at 16, Tim at 13. Dan Clancy over at Twitch, 21%, Andy Jassy at 12%. So overall, everybody's kind of expects
on the chopping block, but not fully.
not really.
13% on this chopping block.
Basically, 21% at the highest.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stock performance and the earnings performance of these firms, and it's just like Ben Thompson was talking about. Is it time to talk about Tim Cook resigning or retiring? And it's just like, has the CEO of the most valuable company in the world ever retired or stepped down? Like it seems crazy to switch horses in the middle of a stream that's a torrent of cash. Even if there are some storm clouds on the horizon, it's a fantastic, like the business is just the best business of all time in human history. Like no company has created more cash than Apple. And so how even if there are some bumps in the road, how do you say, Apple Intelligence hasn't been good enough, so we're switching? It's like, like I created $2 trillion of value. Like, okay, you forgot to say thanks.
Anyway, you never said please.
Anyway, congratulations to Ian Cinnamon. We saw him over in DC. He announced a $200 million Series C investment. Is a massive vote of confidence from our backers. He, of course, runs Apex Space. We had him on the show. If you're not familiar, it is a satellite bus. Congratulations, Ian. You invented a bus. I don't know if you remember bus discourse from the Lyft days, when Lyft created a ride sharing thing where you could put like 10 people on it. It was called Lyft Line. And so if I'm going from San Francisco to Palo Alto, you could hop on in South San Francisco, and they were kind of hailing it as like, oh, this is like so much more efficient because the cars are driving less congestion, less emissions. Very good. But a lot of people are saying, oh, you just invented a bus. You just invented private transit. To my point, it was always like, well, don't we want more buses? Don't we want more trains? Don't we want more of this stuff? But anyway,
and then so that was Tuesday, which is awesome. And then on Wednesday, True Anomaly announced a $260 million fundraise led by Excel, with participation from Riot, who is one of their largest shareholders as well. Shout out to my friend Will. True Anomaly is focused more on the defense side, making hunter seeker satellites. Big day, big week for space investment.
Also, I don't know if we covered this on the show. We mentioned it when we talked to folks in Helen Valley, but Sarah Tavel has transitioned into a new role at Benchmark after 8 years. She's shifting to a venture partner. She'll continue to make new investments on behalf of Benchmark. And there's a lot of speculation about, is this related to the Manus AI investment, or is this just kind of family, personal decision? But congratulations to her. We love some personnel news on this show. We love tracking the trade deals, who's going in, who's on the starting line, who's on the bench, who's moving around, who's trading. We got some breaking news for you on Monday. I'm very excited to announce we have somebody coming on the show, which will be fun. More
this is cool.
in the
Sarah,
venture world. Congrats to her.
8 years, across multiple funds while at Benchmark. 8 years ago feels like 30 years ago in venture in some ways. So congratulations on evolving. And what else we got? Meta AI launched a new standalone AI app. Have you downloaded it yet?
I have not. I haven't used Llama very much at all. Obviously it's useful if you're, vibe coding and need some, open source model to tweak. The most that I've interacted with it is in the Meta Ray-Bans, the sunglasses. And I do think there's something there where if you're going for a walk, walking the dog, you don't need to pull out your phone. You can just ask and kind of have this conversation and be learning about different things. Because often that's the best use of these LLMs, is just knowledge engines. And so being able to interact with those in more ways. It'll be interesting to track the numbers. Famously on stage, Ruth Porat from Google was, and this was actually in the earnings as well. Google has announced they've broken 1 billion AI users, but of course that's driven because whenever you type something in Google now, it just serves you a generative AI response in many cases, unless you're searching for a very specific thing. And so they really use their distribution to push AI. The Gemini app, the actual dedicated app, only has 30 million installs, which is still a ton, but by Google standards, it's not nearly as big. It'll be interesting to see what Meta does to actually drive installs here, because historically this playbook it's always been like a precursor to a new tab. Like I believe Reels was its own app, and Facebook Camera was its own app before they bought Instagram. And then eventually they added stories to Facebook. They added live streaming to Facebook. And so you have to imagine that this is somewhat temporary, because climbing up getting 1 billion people or 2 billion people to install a new app and really change their behavior is just an insurmountable task. Why not just do it within the actual apps themselves? But at the same time, it's hard to surface LLMs in a reasonable way. I've had some weird experiences where I've gone to Instagram search for, I want to see, Instagram Reels about a particular car. And then all of a sudden I'm just dropped in a chat with Llama. And I'm like, this is not what I want. I actually am searching for videos at this point, and you just start talking to me, and you can't do the thing that I need you to do. And so obviously it's a big product challenge, but good luck to everyone over at Meta.
Yeah, the big call out here, they're saying they're going to generate up to almost $1.5 trillion in generative AI revenue by 2035. And so you have to imagine some of that will be consumer, some of it will be more on the developer side.
Do you think they're going to have to pay sales tax on all of
that? They absolutely will have to, John.
Yeah. So Mark, I'm sure you're listening. Head over to numeralhq.com. Put your sales tax on autopilot. Spend less than 5 minutes per month on sales tax compliance. Benchmark Series A.
Benchmark Series A. Thank you to Numeral for sponsoring the show. A lot of our friends in SaaS and e-commerce already use Numeral. But if you're in that space, go check them out. Tell them, and Mark, tell them the Technology Brothers sent you.
Yep. There's some more news in the AI world. Mira Murati's startup gives her board control in an Andreessen-led deal. Lulu, friend of the show, says normalize founders having board control. I like this a lot, but the actual mechanics of the board control are pretty interesting. Mira's board vote always equals the total number of the other directors plus one. She's guaranteed an outright majority. on every matter, even if the board later expands. It's a $2 billion Series A, which sounds like they're off by 1,000x compared to 10 years ago. At a $10 billion valuation, A16Z and investors accepted the structure to secure a large stake while giving the scarce AI talent freedom to pursue AGI research without near-term profit. She won, says Nick.
Yeah.
Mathematically undilutable control. Now it's interesting because there's a bunch of different ways to do this. We know a founder who has, I think, 7 or 10 board seats. And so you can basically just add directors and you're going to just and you don't really have to renegotiate that. Of course, depends on if you have leverage, because if
says, I mean, the big thing here,
completely turn over the board, you're cooked.
This all comes down to leverage, and totally. It could easily be flipped. Let's say 2 years from now, things are going good, but not great. Somebody could easily come in and say, well, I'll invest the $1 billion, but I want board control. And at that point,
it's just a deal point. Yeah, exactly. So some of these board control deals are, you're only good as your last, quarter earnings, basically. Some of them are a little bit silly, but I think that they do lead to founders taking more risk, being more confident, which I think is good. There's another pattern
long-term thinking.
Where founders are very tight with voting seats, but very liberal with observer seats. And so the board meeting was basically a presentation from the founders who actually have the votes to a huge group of investors who have basically super information rights, because they get to experience the full board, the full board meeting as observers. But the idea is that until you're a public company, the board functions very, very differently, and so you don't need to kind of play house while you're a private company. So interesting to see this kind of continue to develop. Anyway, should we go to Matt Grimm? He says Billy McFarland was 10 years too early. Quote tweeting Michael Miraflor says, my theory is that a major contributing factor to the rise of all these private members clubs is the deterioration of civil society and rising crime / declining sense of safety and security since the pandemic. Shows a screenshot of an image that shows New York City is in the middle of a members club boom. There's Amman, New York, Maxime's, Casa Cruz, the 22, the Ned, Crane Club, Chez Margot,
Casa Cipriani. I mean, it's funny. Members clubs pricing always feels reasonable until you realize you need 3 or 4 or 5 to get in the rotation. Not actually. I mean,
what's funny is this doesn't feel new to me at all. Just in New York, the Harvard Club, Yale Club, New York Athletic Club, there are plenty of these clubs, but I think that maybe they're suffering from the same kind of boomer poisoning that's happened in the housing market and in so many other organizations, where the boomers aren't retiring because they're living longer, and so they're not turning the club over to a new generation, and so that creates an opportunity for completely new clubs to
the very real dynamic here is that as clubs scale, the product quality just naturally gets worse. Part of what's amazing about a new club is that it's a tight-knit, heavily vetted community, and then they realize, hey, we actually want a 2x next year, and then a bunch of people get added, and it can kind of take away from what initially made the club great. So Soho House is the biggest example of this. A lot of people have just complained about how Soho House at times can feel just more like a restaurant that requires a membership now versus actually feeling like a community space. And so anyways, one of those things, not a good fit for venture capital typically, just because venture is hey, how do we 2x, how do we 3x, 2x, 2x? If you're running a membership club like that, there's probably a certain size, maybe it's 1,000 members. That's the perfect amount. And if you want to take it to 2,000, every member is going to suffer, and the experience will suffer. So.
Well, let's move on to some Waymo news. Waymo announced a partnership with Toyota, we're exploring new autonomous vehicle platform and how to leverage our technology for their personally owned vehicles. So, in theory, you'll be able to buy a Toyota that has self-driving capabilities powered by Waymo. Very interesting. One day you won't just hail a Waymo, you'll buy one, says Alex Immerman over at Andreessen Horowitz.
I mean, I would buy a personal Waymo right
Yeah.
now, even if it was a Toyota. Like I
Would you
actually,
get a Supra
yeah, of
with
course, of
with
course.
underlighting? You would have it stanced.
Yeah,
The
stanced for
wheels just
sure.
stanced with the underlighting.
Stanced. Imagine when
Like
you when
Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, I mean, and this has basically been Elon's vision for autonomous driving at Tesla,
Yep.
which is, hey, you're going to buy a Tesla. When you're not
Yep.
using it, you can add it to an autonomous fleet and actually earn money on
Yep.
it or help cover the cost.
Yep.
Which is in a very exciting
Yep.
vision. But Waymo's advantage here is, they're kind of recognizing that the underlying hardware is potentially a commodity
Yep.
and they can build their systems on any existing cars.
Yeah, the whole
And
Waymo partnership thing is fascinating. Like they've done some stuff where Uber has said, "Oh, we're going to be the aggregator, and you'll be able to call a Waymo on Uber," and that feels like it doesn't make any sense. And like you would just go straight to Waymo. And and then yeah, they're partnering with hardware. And then there's this other question of like, will there be businesses or small businesses that are dedicated just to operating fleets of Waymos and then cleaning them, because obviously that's a very human problem. You have to wash
yeah,
them and charge them, and where do they stay? All that infrastructure needs to get built up. So having some sort of decentralized, it's like, does Coca-Cola own every bottler? Like they've gone back and forth on that choice.
yeah,
But at the same time, this feels like, you know, we're in this moment where Waymo feels ahead of Tesla, especially in San Francisco, in terms of like, you don't see a lot of people riding in the back of their Teslas. Let's be honest. Like the self-driving is pretty good, but
yeah.
you're still in the front. And in the Waymo, there's no person, so it's clearly full self-driving. But at the same time, like, does XAI teach us nothing about Elon's ability to catch up when someone leapfrogs
Well,
the
so
technology?
to be clear, Waymo is doing roughly, I think, 1 million rides a month
Yep.
as of the latest estimates,
Yep.
and
Tesla has to
Tesla
be
is doing
they must be doing 1 million a day or 10 million a day. I mean, how many cars have they sold?
Oh, okay, but you're counting.
I'm counting the data collection. That's what I care.
Got it.
So it's like Grok was able to scrape the web like everyone else because that's commoditized. But you can't just scrape 1 billion rides with all the sensor data of what was the camera seeing, what did the human do. That's all for reinforcement learning to understand, hey, we were driving autonomously, and then the human grabbed the wheel and steered to the left. It's like, oh, well,
Yeah,
that was because clearly if we run the tape back, the camera saw a cone, didn't identify it as a cone, and the human saw it and intervened. So let's go
yeah,
retrain the model to say, basically in the weights, if cone, steer to the left, right? And so Elon, if you can see what he's done with XAI, catching up to close to the frontier of LLMs, even if with this Waymo full self-driving is better right now, it feels like, he goes back, does a little sprint, and Tesla's at least caught up to Waymo in terms of the technology. And then
yeah,
there's just the question of, okay, now maybe it's a duopoly, but it's still really valuable. And so it'll
yeah.
be interesting to see where this goes. Anyway, not to go back to Tesla, but it's a fascinating topic. Anyway, Signal talks about Apple. He says, for Apple, the idea that you would batch innovation, hold it hostage for a pre-recorded WWC ceremony, and then dribble it out over a year in an era where AI is rewriting paradigms weekly is sort of ridiculous. I'm really intrigued to see how they navigate the AI era, because it holds an insane amount of opportunity, but it also exposes them to deeply uncomfortable levels of executional volatility. And this is the case for like the modern app store. Give up the Siri button.
Yeah.
Give up. Let the AI apps, propagate on top of what you've already built. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's not 30%, but if you're taking 15 or 10 or something, this could be really, really, really big. But it has been very rough. But that was never a question. No one was ever,
Yeah.
like, I can't wait till the next WWC to get the Uber update, because Uber was pushing updates constantly. And it was a much better pattern.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, there's a bunch of different stances here. I feel like Airbnb sort of re-pioneered the idea of these sort of keynote events, big launches combining multiple features.
Totally.
But I also think they probably do a lot of testing and smaller rollouts of some functionality even before they announce it in this sort of big major event.
I mean, it totally makes sense for the hardware cycle to be like, hey, we're refreshing the iPhone every year. Here's the latest and greatest. But for software stuff, it's more like what Brian Chesky was talking about with Founder Mode and the Airbnb summit that they do annually. It's like package up, and Ryan Peterson did this at Flexport, where it's like, hey, maybe WWC should just be a great reintroduction, recap of all the stuff that you've shipped, all the experiments that you've run, what's working, what are you pushing forward, and then really separate out the backward looking from the forward looking and say, hey, you've noticed if you're using this phone, we've shipped 25 updates to Apple Intelligence. It's really it's better. It's much better at this now. Now here's some of our roadmap and what you can expect, what we're excited, what we're hiring for, why you should stay with our platform, why you should build on our platform. But we'll see. That seems like a hard one to change culturally. But the easier out for them would definitely be to just let the third-party app developers flourish a little bit more, and maybe the App Store change actually drives that even more, because AI companies can see, hey, if I go in and I get a $20 a month subscription, it's fully $20 a month, not 13 or 16 or whatever. Or what? 16 or something like that. Anyway, Gabriel Stengel is announcing a $50 million Series B for Rogo AI from Thrive Capital, joined by JP Morgan, Tiger Global. Patrick's in the deal.
Of course he is.
Patrick O'Shaughnessy from Invest Like the Best getting in there. And Khosla, Box Group, AliCorp are all in as well. They're building Wall Street's first true AI analyst. Classic. Our mission is clear and ambitious to create Wall Street's first AI analyst. We endeavor to help investment banks, hedge funds, and private equity firms. I mean, that's what we endeavor to do as well, just help them generally. Rogo, I guess, is specifically focused on making them helping them make smarter, sharper, and faster decisions every day. I just want to help them broadly. But let's hear it for the investment banks, the hedge funds, and the private equity firms. We just, what would America be without them? Fantastic. So they're going to 10x.
They're going to be more efficient, but they probably won't work any less, right? And that's what we love about big PE, these hedge funds, multinational investment firms. It's great to see.
International business. It's great.
International businessmen
and national business now, and domestic business in the age of tariffs. Heat Loss says the lion does not concern himself with ITAR. I think it's so funny.
I don't know about that.
I think that's not optional.
Sketchy lion over there.
That's a sketchy. That's a lion who will not be winning a program of record.
Will
not be advancing from SBIR. Very funny that I just love that an ITAR post can get 1,000 likes. There's just like
ITAR is mainstream now.
Out there. It's mainstream. Mainstream. And it was not years ago. Well, speaking of ITAR compliant stuff, Carmen says, I finally found out what Palantir does. And there's a post here. Palantir is the creator and primary maintainer of TS-Lint, the standard linter for the TypeScript programming language. I love that. I mean, it's a cracked engineering team that they're writing so much TypeScript that they wrote their own linter and then open sourced it. I thought that was very funny.
What a group.
That Palantir's doing some linting.
We got a post from Joe Weisenthal. It's easy to say that Q1 GDP data generally confirms the story that demand side activity was fine, but that all of the action is happening on the supply side, and that's true. But there have been concerns about softening April 2nd activity. In that sense, the report is A+. All things equal, seems better to go into the tariff economy starting from a robust pace of activity versus a mediocre pace.
This was my takeaway from the
the last thing he says, personal consumption rose 1.8% versus 1.2% expected. American consumer does not slow down.
This was my takeaway from the Sequoia memo going into COVID. So Sequoia's written two very famous memos, the Black Swan memo and the RAP Good Times memo. And I believe the first one, which I think the first one was the Black Swan after the housing crisis, was a real macro deep dive into the state of the economy and identified a lot of things that were being talked about on Wall Street, but really put them in terms, still a lot of macro charts, but put them in terms that startup founders could understand and really let them know that, hey, while tech is great and growing in 2008, the consumer, the American consumer, is not set up to withstand what's coming in terms of the deleveraging of the housing market. Folks will lose houses, mortgages, variable rate mortgages will explode. It's going to be very, very rough. So buckle up. And that was absolutely correct. Then going into the COVID crash, Sequoia put out another memo saying that we weren't expecting this, and startups need to be prepared for fundraising markets to close and increased unemployment, a lot of turmoil in the economy, and of course that's exactly what happened. The stock market traded down like 30%. It was an absolute disaster. But what that memo sort of missed was that if you pulled all the stats from the first 2008 memo about the health of the American consumer, so debt ratios, credit card delinquencies, interest rates, all of that type of stuff, real GDP, wages, all that stuff, you could actually tell that going into COVID, the American consumer was much stronger than, and like household balance sheets were much stronger than going into the '08 housing crisis. And so COVID was this wild card, this black swan event that was extremely tumultuous and caused massive unemployment very quickly. But we were economically more prepared for it than going into 2008. And so, yes, the tariff economy, the tariff chaos is very detrimental to a lot of businesses. It's very detrimental to the short-term American economy. We've seen this all over the place, but we are set up for, we are in it. We are coming from a source of strength. And so we can kind of like absorb the hit points for a little bit. And that's, I think, what we're seeing in the economy with the robust earnings in big tech and the personal consumption rising actually higher than expected in the face of absolute turmoil and chaos in the news, right? And this is this weird thing that the vibe shift, the vibe session, where the news and even the facts are pretty bad. And yet when you poll people, they will say, there's this interesting metric for the vibe session where if you ask people, how do you think things are going? How are your friends and neighbors doing in this economy? They will say, oh, it's terrible. Biden's economy is bad, or Trump's economy is bad. But if you ask them how they personally are doing, oftentimes they will report that they're doing better than they expect, or better than they perceive the economy to do. So they say, the economy is bad, but I happen to be doing fine. And if everyone reports the same thing, it's this weird preference falsification issue where everyone feels like it's doom and gloom. But in fact, not that many people are actually feeling real pain. And so it's a little bit of an economic puzzle. Anyway, there was some bad news on the employment front. The estimate was that we were going to add 115,000 jobs, and we only added 62,000 jobs, and futures dropped on that on April 30th. But overall, the market has been doing very well, and we've been rebounding from all the chaos. And Bitcoin is almost up at 100K again, which is remarkable to see.
Remarkable. Anyway, Trey Stevens over at Founders Fund and Anduril says one of Founders Fund's fastest growing portcos, Armada AI, is hiring a VP of Federal to lead federal strategy and bring advanced compute wherever the warfighter needs it. It's an early, high impact role with huge potential. If you're in the top 1% at what you do and are interested in the role, send 3 to 5 bullet points demonstrating exceptional ability to federalvp@armada.ai. Very cool role. We got to hear about Armada AI actually yesterday from one of Armada's very earliest investors. And there's not a lot out there on the company yet, but we left that conversation extremely bullish. Extremely bullish.
Yeah. Just to break it down at a very high level, Starlink is a new capability. And if you're on the consumer side, you pick up a Starlink at a Best Buy like I did, plug it in, and you have internet, and that's great. And that's pretty much all I need is just a Wi-Fi hotspot when I'm traveling. They also have products for planes, and you've seen Jet Suite X has Starlink, and there's Starlink on new major airlines. A lot of the airlines are clamoring to do deals with Starlink, and then the government also buys Starlink through the Star Shield program and provisions it for military applications. But as we kind of learn through this conversation, for large enterprises, very, very large enterprises, think Fortune 100 companies, the needs from a Starlink product are different than from the consumer side. And so you could imagine if you have a data centers all over the globe, and you want to add connectivity to remote outposts all over, you're going to need tools to manage that, tools to provision that, what satellites are working, what are going down, what are the speeds across these, what are the security issues. And so it's one of these businesses that unless you're touching it in the Fortune 100 IT world, you probably don't know that much about it. But once you get in and pull back the curtain, you realize that there's a massive business opportunity here. So I imagine this will be a very fun job. So good luck to everyone who applies.
Yep.
You talked about this a little bit. Sam Lesson,
so Sam Lesson
had a wild idea. We've talked about this a little bit. Sam Lesson says the reality is that OpenAI should really buy Snap. It's basically free, and they do need a network. Jordy, what is your take on OpenAI buying Snap? For reference, I think OpenAI is around $300 billion, maybe a little bit higher. Snap is trading at around $7 billion. Is that right? So
no, double that actually, $14 billion.
$14 billion. Okay, so you're talking about 4% of the company if this happened. A lot of the other foundation models have found dance partners. Llama is obviously partnered with Meta and owned by Meta, and so can be deeply integrated into Facebook products and Instagram products. And there's been and X and XAI have teamed up. So what should Snap and OpenAI do?
Yeah, so I mean, Snap declined to provide a forecast as of Wednesday. Stock fell 15%. So I think that may have prompted Sam Lesson's post. And I think the big question here is, does integrating your foundation model in with an existing app really drive incredible distribution? And the question with OpenAI is, what percentage of Snap users are not already ChatGPT users? And my sense is that if Snap has, primarily, a lot of market share or at least usage among young people, I think that my sense is that it could very well be that 60, 70, 80% of Snap's, weekly active users are already ChatGPT users. And I just don't think that from that sense, I'm not sure that it's completely valuable to OpenAI. Could be more valuable to someone like an Anthropic if they really, really want to double down and compete in consumer. I'm still not entirely sure that XAI and Grok are going to win because of distribution through X, right? I think it's useful, but I'm still not, using Grok within X aggressively. So
also, I mean, X has the benefit of really being a great source of real-time data in the sense that every news story breaks and gets even though links are punished, the stories do find their way to X very, very quickly. And you get a really good idea of like a weighing machine in the algorithm of what angle on the story is having the most traction, which story of three that were written is breaking through in the most meaningful way. That helps with better responses in real time from LLMs. On the Snapchat side, it is a video first platform. So
extreme. It's privacy centric, right?
Privacy centric, but they do have a Reels product, and people do spend time scrolling TikTok style content. I would be very hesitant to try and just stuff a chat interface in Snapchat and see any real meaningful interaction with the LLM, like we talked about with Meta and Llama. But I do think that, there is the question of like, what is the next form of these foundation models? Like, is there a world where you have an AI that's living on Snap that's sending you videos or AI generated images with captions that are interesting based on your preferences in the algorithm? That does seem like it's happening in like a diffuse way with AI video creators. A lot of it's just fake, unfortunately. Like if you go on car YouTube, you'll see tons of AI generated videos for fake cars that don't exist that feel like concept cars, and it's very silly. But you could use a more mature model and a more, I don't know, better moral framework potentially to actually get to surface like better information that's more relevant. Anyway, do you want to read the next post?
Yeah, we got a post from Zach Abrams. Bridge and Visa are launching stablecoin card issuing. Says, together we built one card program that can serve the world. Developers can now launch global cards in minutes. Excited to initially launch with Fuse Wallet and a company that I'm not familiar with, across the US, LATAM, and more. Yeah. So this is massive. I'm actually looking forward to Stripe's conference this coming week. We're not going to be attending in person, but excited to cover the news, and hopefully we can get Zach on at some point to talk about this partnership live. But stable coins are very, very real in many, many ways already, and enabling, the seamless spending of those stable coins across the Visa network will be super powerful.
Yep. Let's rip through some other news. Datadog's acquiring startup Eppo for $220 million. That feels like a great outcome. I'd love to dig into this more, but still, size gong for the Eppo team. Datadog, absolute dogs.
Eppo. Drop the N in Eppo. It's just Eppo.
Anduril gave some updates on the YFQ-44A flying this summer. They're making progress on that collaborative combat aircraft. Looks great. Palmer said he has a strict no render policy. It's all real unless you see the anime,
that was cool.
Which is a cool design choice, right? To be like, we will use CGI to visualize things that can't be seen. So like radio waves, for example, or if we're describing like a future, we'll just use the anime style and it's obvious that it's rendered instead of doing photoreal renders where is it real, is it not? It's like, it's either real or it's anime. And so there's a very clear dividing line there. I thought that was cool. And I hope that more companies adopt that to kind of create the differentiation between what's a render and what's not.
Well, the government has spent, the federal government, DoD, the Pentagon has spent probably trillions of dollars on renders over the years of things that never actually came to fruition.
Yeah.
And same thing. And, this happens in startups and hard tech. Companies can create a great render, but not fully deliver on it for a variety of reasons. So I think it's a great policy, and it makes you pay a lot more attention to the stuff that they're actually putting out, because it's real.
Yep.
This post from Delian was funny. He says, Mr. Asparuhov told reporters, he's referencing Manus Benchmark's investment in Chinese AI company Manus. Said, Mr. Asparuhov told reporters the investment in China made Benchmark appear more comparable to the Chinese Communist Party. And this is a quote, hats off to Bill Gurley. He won't be attending this year's forum. Mr. Asparuhov said. Mr. Gurley did not respond to a comment. Anyways, I don't think Bill Gurley needs to respond to this because he's no longer an active GP at Benchmark, but it's still is a funny.
It's fun to see Delian having some fun taking shots. Let's move on to the Doge story. This is probably a good place to close out. Catherine Boyle says, these kids are so hardcore, no weekends. They know they're racing against a media and political clock that won't thank them for their service. No exaggeration. This is the most inspiring effort in government of our lifetime. Long Doge. And we got lots of great photos hitting the timeline. Luke Ferrator looking fantastic in a suit and tie. Cody
there
James,
we go.
Fellas in control. And lots of people are coming out. Atlas says, that's my best friend. We have been following each other on x.com for years at this point, by the way. I love that. And Augustus,
if you've been following, if you've been mutuals, with somebody for a few years, you're basically best friends.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, DC was packed. I mean, Ryan Peterson was doing Senate bean soup reviews,
It's
having
just
fun,
great.
meeting with senators. NVIDIA, Jensen Huang announced a $500 billion investment to build AGI in the US, kind of a continuation of that Stargate announcement. And yeah, just
Well, this is
tons of good
separate,
stuff going on.
separate
Oh,
from
this is
Stargate.
separate? Okay.
Yeah. It just turns out $500 billion is a nice round number that
Yep.
everybody tends to gravitate towards. But, Stargate was OpenAI plus Masa plus a handful of other players, also announced by Trump. But this was announced directly by Jensen,
Yep.
who, yeah, was all over Hill and Valley this week, which was cool.
So, what are the other top stories we need to cover before we get out of here? GTA 6 has been delayed to 2026. Pour one out for the gamers, a little moment of silence for all the gamers. I think at this point,
Yeah, this is
I
brutal. You can
will,
actually,
between family and work, by the time GTA 6 drops, I will not have any time to play it, which is very sad because I played GTA 5 a lot when it came out in 2012 or something.
yeah.
Also in the news,
Yeah, the market have been
went from 100 million ARR to 300 million ARR in 4 months. That's massive. Congratulations to them. And the Neuralink team has a FDA breakthrough designation, device designation for speech restoration. And Elon says, congrats to the Neuralink team. So congratulations. That's great. Any other
and the
stories you
last
want to run
one,
through?
the CIA released 2 videos in Mandarin
This is very important.
aimed at recruiting Chinese officials.
Oh, yeah.
And John Ratcliffe said one of the primary roles of the CIA is to collect intelligence by recruiting assets that can help us steal secrets. So being very, going to CIA is just going direct here,
Yep.
being very explicit.
Yep.
So if doubt this would be the case, but if you're a Chinese official listening to this and you want to help America, head over to @CIA on X and get in touch with them.
Give them a message. We also have one last review. We've said for a long time, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we will read it on the show. Thank you. My favorite place to get technology and business news. Nowhere else can I get such varied topics. This review is brought to you by TahoeLifeAgency.com, the best place to get life insurance.
And this is from my next door neighbor, Murph. So shout out to Murph. I realized a couple years ago that I should probably have a life insurance policy because I'm an adult with a family.
Yeah.
And I went to Murph, and he's the best. So shout out to Murph. Thank you for the 5-star review. You're the man. I will see you probably at some point later today.
Amazing. And we will see the rest of the audience on Monday. So thank you for listening to this show. We hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Goodbye.
Yep. Have a great weekend, everybody.